Ashe is a legend for those with no fear, players who are ready to make their own luck, create opportunities, and keep the pressure up. How, you ask? Well, let's take a look. Passively, Ashe has every death in the lobby that is less than 3 minutes old shown on her map. These are death box icons that can be pinged to highlight its location to the team, including how long ago that person was killed. This will effectively allow you to track guaranteed locations of recent teams who have just thirsted an enemy or wiped a squad. In addition, when you finally get there, you can interact with any death box to show your team the current position of the squad that wiped them for 8 seconds. Her tactical throws out a snare with a 4-meter radius that tethers to the first enemy hit or otherwise holds in place at its first object collision for 5 seconds. The first enemy to be hit or walk into the trap will take 10 damage to flesh or 20 to shields and will be snared for 3 seconds if they try to escape. The ability cooldown is 20 seconds. Her signature move is her ultimate, tearing a hole in space-time to transport to a targeted location, leaving behind a one-way portal that other players can follow through for around 15 seconds. Tap it once for a 1-second arming animation, and then again to cast it, assuming the indicator is latched onto something that you can port to. The cooldown of this ability is 2 minutes. Finally, Ashe is an assault legend, so she has a class perk of being able to open weapon supply bins that have a number of upgrades specific to her team's current loadout, and she can also carry more ammo per stack than standard legends. So that's the overview, but now we get into the useful details about her kit, how best to use Ashe, and then how to play against her. When you first pick up Ashe, it's easy to think that you need to be using her passive by checking the map at all times for the most up-to-date information. But remember that there's a kill feed that lets you know when action has just gone down. Use it as a notification to prompt you to check the map so you aren't wasting time waiting for it. It will show enemy deaths over the whole map, but with a different icon depending on zoom level. If you're zoomed out far enough, they'll show up as these tiny white dots, and as you zoom in further, they'll start to show as death icons. Marked death box icons will fade proportionally to how long they've been out, so if you're wanting to spot the latest people to be wiped, then look for the least transparent icons. When actually approaching death boxes, look for the knife icon as an indicator that it will mark players that are currently alive. If the box has a skull, then it will mark the location of the killer's death boxes instead. Bear in mind you can use your passive on your own downed team member if you need to quickly ping their victor's nearby location. Especially useful if you have 2 finished allies and want to know if it's safe to get the banner for the second box. Just note that enemies that are revealed by Ashe's passive are notified with this on-screen warning, so be aware that they may be rotating back towards you or expecting you to roll up on them. Ashe is great at chancing a snare on an enemy and capitalizing on her catch. However, there are a number of things that you need to consider to make the most of the situation. Ashe's tactical is great for hot drop, as it's available to use instantly, making it easier to secure the first weapon from anyone else. Painting the snare area with throwables is a surefire way to get the most out of being able to keep your enemy in one spot, so always have a couple of nades on you when you can. Consider also using her snare to cut off a position depending on the situation. So for example, behind a retreating team, at a doorway to prevent an escape, or along a corridor to buy you and your team some time. On the other hand, it can be used to guarantee defensive play options too. Catching an enemy during a gunfight or a chase will almost always give you the time to pop a bat behind cover safely. Keep an eye on the abilities of enemy legends, as those with mobility to escape can be stopped in their traps with a preemptive arc snare. This won't stop legends with abilities that teleport or phase out like Ashe's ult or Wraith skills. However, as an added bonus, you can identify an ulted Mirage to deny his bamboozle. Hitting him will show the damage over the true Mirage's head, as well as show the electrified arc snare animation around him. Ashe's ultimate is particularly useful on maps or in areas with lots of verticality. This is partly due to having it as a unique option over most other legends, but also the vertical range far exceeds her horizontal, making it an option that will catch many off guard. When porting, there's a minor delay to recover, pulling out your gun and even looking around, so bear this in mind when you're thinking of ulting into the thick of things and try to aim for a spot out of the line of sight of enemies. Anyone travelling through your ult becomes immune to damage, giving it a clear advantage over the likes of ziplines to cut across gunfire safely. Although consider saving her ult for when it matters, as it offers instant repositioning in times of dire need or the chance to get a quick flank or high ground rather than using it to travel across the map when you aren't in combat. Her ult can be aimed through small cracks or windows, crossing boundaries that can't physically be followed just by chasing on foot. Finally, using her ult above the likes of a supply bin before it opens will allow you to cancel it early once you open the bin, a minor tip that might help prevent an enemy chaser from being able to follow. So now you have a rundown of her abilities, let's talk about how we use all of her kit together. First, it needs to be second nature to use her snare following events where everyone lands in the same area. This means after you ult, always have the option of snaring them at the landing to catch anyone that follows up. This also applies to using Wraith's portal, map portals, and even gravity cannons. Try to check the map regularly using the kill feed as your prompt. Bear in mind that with Ashe you can confidently locate nearby teams, which will allow you to make the choice to play safe or aggressive depending on your circumstances. If you've just brought back a team member or your team is particularly low on loot, it can help to find areas where a large number of people have been killed to mop up loot from those death boxes quickly. Remember that the trap when thrown has a 4-meter radius, so there's still a decent amount of space for them to move around freely within it. So just because you have them, don't go running out into the open for a 1v1, because you'll both equally be able to dodge and weave gunfire, losing you the advantage you would gain. Instead, align your line of sight with the edge of the trap radius so that you can use cover where they can't or they otherwise will be snared, in which case it's a free kill. The last tip is due to the predefined direction that anyone takes when using Ashe's ult, it's useful to by default instantly take a step backwards if you believe an enemy will follow you through it. This way you'll be ready to full clip them and they'll be guaranteed facing in the wrong direction. Next, there are a few interesting things to consider when going against Ashe to try and counter the advantages she brings to her squad. Given that you are notified when an enemy Ashe marks you with her passive, if you're savvy enough with noting where you rotated from, there is a good chance you now know where their team is and what direction they'll come at you from, allowing you to out-rotate or be ready to trap them. Legends with teleports or phasing abilities can escape the snare scot-free as mentioned earlier, so know that as your advantage when coming across an Ashe so that you can consider saving your ability for if you're trapped in a bad position. Finally, Ashe's ult is extremely loud both when she activates it and when people travel through it, which is useful for enemy teams who will know their location pretty confidently. It's important to use these audio cues to your advantage so you can quickly deny an enemy team flank, for example. For Legend Viability, in my opinion, Ashe pairs super well with Fuse, thanks to his ability to carry twice as many throwables and blanket an area with damage from his ult and tactical too. It therefore makes him an ideal choice for capitalizing on catching people with Arc Snare. She also pairs well with some defensive legends like Gibraltar and Caustic. Gibraltar with his bubble as a super safe way to escape trouble or hard engage a team after Ashe's ult. And Caustic, like Fuse, can spread damage on an area that an enemy is caught and even gas trap the end of Ashe's ult to catch followers. Although not a meta pick, Revenant's ult combined with Ashe's gives really risk-free engage opportunities that can port you far back to safety which can't be followed up on as Ashe's ult only goes one way. So once you've got used to all the core strengths of Ashe and you can play her comfortably in ranked, I suggest you look at some of the higher level players who use her often. The most notable one for me has been iGrind Apex again, the number one Ashe with an insane number of kills and has current videos that show off high level mechanics, far beyond the scope of this video, which is more to get you completely clued up on Ashe from scratch, so check them out below if you wish. Before you head on over though, if you like this video and want to see more in the future, hit subscribe so you can catch me on the next one. Ashe epitomizes aggressive gameplay, with great options to catch her prey and great team-wide mobility. Her passive is heavily underrated and extremely powerful in the right hands, especially once you've put in the time to use her kit effectively. But remember, we play for fun, so if it stresses you too much, cool off, touch grass, and when you play to win.